Personality is a useful tool, but it cannot define who you are. Who you are lies far beyond who you think you are. That's a quote by Jac O'Keeffe in Rhonda Byrne's book, The Greatest Secret. And today we talk with Jac in this episode of Letting Go and the Greatest Secret. I'm Hale Dwoskin. Jac O'Keeffe is known for her clarity and direct manner. She is a spiritual teacher, author, and trailblazer in the exploration of consciousness. She has been teaching and holding workshops around the world, guiding people in the unfoldment of their own spiritual journey for more than 10 years. Like every teacher in The Greatest Secret, she is dedicated to freeing humanity from the unnecessary suffering caused by the mind, so we can live in the joyful happiness and bliss of our true self. One of the things that Rhonda emphasizes in the whole book is awareness. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to hear your definition of what that is and how to discover it directly.
We're starting with the easy questions, Hale, aren't we?
Oh, of course.
All right. Yeah. Language can be cumbersome. And when we're speaking about something so intimate and so deep within our own beingness, I'd like to give people more opportunities to be fluid with the language, because it's a felt sense is what we're pointing towards.
Absolutely.
And the felt sense, most of us remember having it as a small child.
Definitely.
You know that adults are a little bit bonkers.
A little bit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know the world can be a lot more simple than what people are making it be.
Yes, definitely.
That type of insight, wisdom with innocence, in a way, it's a return to that zone. However, we've got to bring with it the wisdom of having lived a life, of what suffering has taught us, of what being in the world has, how it has molded us into be personalities, and allowing our personality, our character to be there just as it is, yet knowing that, hey, that's how I show up. That's the outpost of what I really am. And the what I really am is awareness, is that felt sense of innocence, is that sense of being a human being rather than a human doing. It's that quietude within. Sometimes when people drop in there, their mind comes with them. And when your mind comes with you, you'll find it's boring. I don't like it in there. There's nothing happening. I'm afraid. It feels like I'm half dead. So these kind of resistances to resting in pure awareness come up when people are bringing their mind with them and they're expecting something. Sure. So the main way, I think, for all of us to find it is to know the difference between the felt sense of that inner calmness, where everything's okay and really nothing is happening, and knowing, okay, my mind is going to pretend that it can go in there. My mind is going to try and jump in and say, you don't really want this because this isn't exciting. There's no distraction here. So that's what our mind will do. And it's to recognize, I see you, mind, I see you, but I'm going back into that which I arose from, that which my personality, my character, my body arose from. I'm going back to that quietness before all of it. So I hope that kind of explains that it's a felt sense.
Yes.
And the greatest obstacle is our mind, because that's the reason that we left it in the first place.
Right. So before we get into discussing the obstacle, I just want to ask you one other question about what you said. Is is it actually we go anywhere, or is it just the mind that comes and goes?
That's exactly it. You nailed it, Hale. The mind creates the movie being, I suppose, what's depicted in the movie The Matrix, that really this 3D world in front of us and that we participate in, it's very much a product of our thinking mind. And in Rhonda's earlier book, she teaches us how to use the mind in order to change your experience of the movie.
Right.
But that's still just the movie.
Yes.
And when the movie is not good enough, and when you've seen through, actually, like I can have, fame, money, love affairs, and the absence of all three, and there's still a yearning, there's still a longing. That's when we're more available to disconnect from the mind and find out, well, what is it that never left home at all? What is it that's at home all the time? Because the mind at that point has a longing, wants to go home, wants a bit of peace, wants something more permanent. But the mind can never create that. So it's about getting distance from the mind and recognizing it for the beautiful machine, creative mechanism that it is. But we're not our mind at all, nor are we a product of our mind. What we are is prior to the mind. So it's really about, I suppose, putting the mind into its proper place, putting mind into, hey, this is better use of you. You're a tool that my beingness, my divine essence can pick up, use, and set down to function in the world. Then some lightness comes in. Then it's a play. It's a play. Even when crappy things happen, it's still, there's a joy in it because there's something that remains untouched. It's not an escapism, it's a discovery. It's a realization, a recognition of, oh my God, when I believe my mind, I'm viewing the world through a very narrow lens. I'm believing I am my personality, I'm believing my thoughts, and that's hell. That becomes a hell. Yes. And so dropping into that which isn't moving at all, we call that awareness.
Yes, yes. That helped really flesh it out. Thank you. Yeah. So what do you believe is the biggest, how do you address the obstacles that the mind throws up? Because I know that's part of what you specialize in, and I want you to share whatever you think, and we'll keep going back and forth on this until we get things that you feel are helpful to the people listening. But if you were going to start explaining this to someone, how would you explain going about disidentifying with the mind, or seeing through, again, when we're focusing on the mind, we're seeing everything through filter after filter after filter, and belief after belief after belief. So how do you recommend we start addressing that?
Yes. My own approach has two parts to it. There's two facets. And I think where spirituality is going now in these times, we're moving away from monastic, patriarchal, ashram, seclusion, hermit life of spirituality to a one that's integrated, where abiding in awareness happens while you parent, school your kids at home, while you do grocery shopping, and while you're in bed with a lover, and while you're lamenting the loss of a pet or a parent or a sibling. No matter the experience of life, that which doesn't move is there all the time. So very difficult to even find that inner felt sense when life is in your face with a big traumatic experience. So I found, in order to live a meaningful life in an honest way, whereby we're not kidding ourselves about our spiritual attainment, we've got to keep two tools to the ready. One is, how proficient am I? How frequent and how long can I stay there when I drop in to that felt sense of beingness, that sense of awareness? Can I stay there? Is it like 30 seconds? Can I go there at will? Because at the start, we can't go there at will. We might have to use the memory of what it was like as a child, or the memory of a spiritual awakening, or the memory of some awe or sacredness that we felt in an experience in our life. Sometimes we have to go to memory. The more we can make it real and drop in through practices of meditation or running a mantra, repeated phrase, the more we can go into that place and stay there for longer periods. We're training our brain to rest there. We're training our mind, hey, you're not the only creator of experience here. This is a direct experience where I'm not going through the mind and where there is rest within and I'm aware of it. The other part of it is, well, what's so darn interesting that you left that exquisite perfection and stillness within? No, this story in the world is better. This experience is pulling me out more. This distraction is nicer. Or this pain is so bad that I have lost access to my beingness because suffering is taking all of me. So this is why I use a two-pronged approach. How deep in can you go and can you stay there? Can you rest there? And what is it in the world that your mind is saying deserves more attention than your true nature? So it's about addressing both. So then all the obstacles that can possibly be are a product of where our attention has gone. And it's different for everybody. It's different for everybody. What takes you out might be addiction. What takes you out might be loneliness, might be grief, might be guilt, shame. What takes you out will usually be something painful, because painful experiences are more potent for our mind than beautiful ones. They are etched deeper into our memory bank. They leave trauma in the cells of our body. And sometimes we have to go into those modalities to loosen up the pattern of needing to grasp onto something of the world and leaving our no attention left and the awareness inside.
Yes.
So there's a plethora of obstacles that the mind can pull up. I mean, life is unlimited in terms of its experiences, and our mind is unlimited in terms of where it goes, but it really likes repetition. Really likes repetition. It will do 60,000 thoughts you had yesterday. You're going to have 60,000 of them again today. We know that. So, like, where's living in the present moment if our mind has a propensity to be that repetitive? And so we've got to unhook the compulsion for our mind to go into story. Story is all right, but are we leaving the pure awareness? Because, like, I'm using words now, so I can talk about what goes on in my teachings, but something in me, like more than 50%, and it's always more than 50%, is abiding in the stillness with a knowing that what we're talking about is happening in movie land. And there's freedom in that. There's joy in that. There's happiness in that. And that's what Rhonda's pointing to. Is
yes,
like,
definitely.
Hey, like, remember who you are, remember, connect yourself up again,
Wonderful. So let's explore that further. So there were two questions that occurred to me that someone listening to this would be interested in. And one is, what specifically do you recommend for people what is the most effective ways you've found as you've worked with people to help people drop in, as you call it, or remember? And then actually, let's start there. And the other one, just to make sure, so we come back to it, is how do you address these addictions, these beliefs, in a way that that supports the mind in letting them go, so that it can be more cooperative with this endeavor to just be what you are. So you can start with either one, since I've outlined both questions. Let's
beautiful.
Just make sure they cover both.
Yeah, and I love that you're presenting both together, Hale, because it really is a double-pronged approach if we're going to live in the world. We've got to be prepared to go within as often as we can and realize what takes us out, and have a capacity to manage both in every day.
Yes, yes.
So for me, what I have found now is most useful for people is to dial down our nervous system. And there is a beautiful breathing technique that makes us switch out of flight, fright, freeze part of our nervous system and go into operating with rest and digest.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're looking at the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems. If we're in tension, bit of anxiety going on, bit of stress going on, we've cranked up the part of our nervous system that is ready to help us to survive.
Right.
All right, let's switch it off. Because really, are you unsafe? Are you really unsafe? Because your nervous system is reading, I'm unsafe, I've got to crank up adrenaline, I've got to crank up. And with that will come identification. With that will come a contraction and a narrowing in, so that the abiding, of course, that needs us to be relaxed and open. Mm-hmm. And so when we use a breathing technique to shift from the anxiety, the flight, fright, or freeze, into rest and digest, we're lining up the body to let go. We're going through a chemical trick to relax our system. And then we're able to let go. Then we're able to drop in. We've gotten rid of a huge obstacle.
So there are many breathing techniques. So can you share, get more specific? The more specific, again, we want to make this as practical for everyone listening as possible. So
I only know one technique that is always effective for shifting out of flight, fright, freeze and into rest and digest. And that is making our out breath longer than our in breath. So when we breathe in, purse your lips as you breathe out, and it will slow down your out breath.
Can you demonstrate?
So as if you were, I don't know, whistling maybe? Okay. But not doing a whistle with your tongue participating in it. So if we breathe in normally through your mouth, through your nose, it doesn't matter. Maybe it would be in on a 1, 2, 3. And now as if you were going to kiss a child, just pursing your lips for a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in 1, 2, 3, purse your lips, out 2, 3, 4, 5. If we do that 9 or 10 times, our body will be relaxed and we'll be in rest and digest. Anxiety goes. So what we're doing is we're playing with a polyvagal theory. We're playing with the nervous system to move it away from its response to danger to trusting our environment. I like this one because the mind will use the body to support its stories, to support the obstacles that it believes to be true. And if we take away the supporting body, the supporting conglomerate of chemicals and form away from the mind, then the mind can't reinforce its movie. We've taken away the body. The body isn't co-opted by our thinking anymore. So if we free up the body and the body is in a state of rest and digest, our thoughts are much less potent. And there is access to that which is still and knows it's always safe. And that a really little bit deeper, it's not even a question of whether it's safe or not, it's what is. So that breathing technique I found to be hugely beneficial. And I've spoken with a lot of people who actually, I can't make my out breath slow down. I can't make it slow down. And this in-breath is sudden. It's like, yeah, that's what your body is doing because of your thoughts. Let's go through the body because the thoughts will pull up another idea and another idea and another idea. So I found that if we go through the body, these times, and my teachings always change, but these times we're in something that is a more organic, natural rhythm will respond. We will find a rhythm that is the pace of awareness itself when we dial down our nervous system and our body gets relaxed. That's the first part.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And does it have any particular origin, or is that something you made up? Oh.
Yes, it came from that scientist who discovered the polyvagal theory, Purgis. Stephen Purgis is his name.
Purgis. Okay,
yes,
good.
Yes,
good.
It came from him, and I've modified it into, oh gosh, this is really effective, because so many are stressed in our lifestyles that we have nowadays. It's like we gotta separate the body from the mind, and here we go. We've got a way to calm down the body. Okay. Now we've got some capacity to see our thoughts.
Yes, that's a great first step. That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a good first step. Yeah, it's a good first step. Yeah.
Good.
You had a second question. Sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Yeah, you had a second question, Hale.
Oh, so the second question is, so you said there's a two-prong. One prong is to drop in or rest as or that which you truly are.
Yeah.
And you gave us a wonderful technique for slowing the breath down, basically, and being more conscious of the breath, because it's also focusing on the breath. There's a physiological thing that happens, but I believe there's also just a focus thing. When you focus on breath, that also tends to calm the mind down. And you gave us a wonderful breath to use for that. And you gave us the where that came from. So all that's very helpful. Yeah, so good. The other piece is, you said there are two things we need to do. One is to drop in or to rest. And the other is to effectively deal with that which we get obsessed with, or that pulls us out, or that distracts us, or that enthralls us, that causes us to forget that which we truly are.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah. In order to get the awareness piece that this book points to, in order to, that's what Rhonda's talking about. In order to get that, you've got to see that you're not your personality.
Yes.
You're not your thoughts. That's not who you are. You're not your character. That doesn't mean dismissing it or denying it. It means you play as that, you show up as that, but it's actually not your identity. So how do we move to that recognition? The more distance we get from our thoughts, the more that we're able to see, oh, I'm thinking this. Oh, look, I'm aware that I'm judging myself here. I'm aware that I'm going to the refrigerator for yet another piece of chocolate, and some part of me doesn't want it at all. I'm aware that I'm doing it. That level of objectivity of being able to see our thoughts is really important. That needs to be there all of the time. Now, the source of these thoughts, when we've got sticky ones that keep repeating, and it's showing up like addiction or showing up as self-sabotage.
Let me just interrupt you for just 1 second.
Yes.
Is it that we need to be, I know from my work, if I tell people they should do something all the time, they sometimes resist it. It's not that we need to be, isn't it that it's just a really good intention to have, to be as aware of thoughts as possible, as opposed to lost in them? Isn't that what you meant?
Sure, that's the in-between place.
Yes.
The consequence of waking up and waking up to awareness and having the hum of pure awareness present in your attention all the time. The consequence of that is that there is a knowing that everything your mind does is done by your mind, that it's always a thought. It never comes up for me before the recognition that it's a thought. There's a seeing of every experience as it arises. If it's here and I don't see it arising, then I've got work to do.
Got it. Yeah, I like that. Yes, that makes it clearer. Yes.
Yeah. No, thank you for the clarification. Yeah. So sure, it's a very high jump, but I'd like to tell people, hey, this happens. that you will end up seeing your mind in action because you're not glued up against it. You're abiding, and you can see your body, you can see your mind, you can see the story-making mechanism, and you're not caught up in it. That's that's freedom.
Yes, and that's attainable by everyone listening to this.
It is.
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
Attainable. And that's the journey, you know, and it's not, I want it right now. And it's like, hey, life is the journey towards it. Enjoy the ride, enjoy the learning. It's a beautiful exploration full of, you know, mysteries that get clarified, wisdom that gets cultivated. It's such a joy. So while, you know, and I'm sure other podcasts also might be giving something that might seem unattainable, it's like, hey, just park it out there. Leave it there. It's like, hey, let's see if my experience is that too, downriver.
Yes.
But to honor our own path.
Yes.
So I'm glad you brought it around, because we have to honor our own path. And here, where we are is the only true place, and the place we have to be, and the place we're all, you know, it's
exactly.
There's a perfection in that,
Totally,
you know,
yes.
and to honor that, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. And so when thoughts come up and we don't spot that they're there until we're deeply in them, and we're like, oh my gosh, I have no connection right now to awareness. I'm like so caught up in me, my story. I'm so caught up in it. And this has to be something that we feel okay about admitting to ourselves. It's like, I'm totally caught in my own story.
Yes, honesty is critical.
It's critical. Brutal self-honesty is what I call it. You gotta have brutal self-honesty. And so when we're like, yeah, I'm caught in a story and I have no idea where it came from. One technique that I'd like to offer is we have a capacity to bring a lens of perception that's outside of the movie making mechanism to the movie making mechanism. If we bring presence to the part of us that's diving into another bar of chocolate, the part of us that I want more coffee, or I'm going to revisit this conversation with this person for the 10th time today, and I don't know how long I've been doing it. Yes, and I'm going to continue chewing over this because this is what I should have said, and this is what they need to hear from me, and this is how I want to be seen. And these heated conversations that are destroying our health, and they're not doing anything else. It's the mind running amok.
Yes.
When we've got these uncomfortable internal mind games going on, bring presence to it. So it's like, I see you. You can be here. You can be here. I see you. You're angry. You need somebody to hear you. You need them to recognize that you're right and they're wrong. And these are the beliefs that you're operating from.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not judge them. Let them all be here. And within ourselves, we have a capacity to be present to that part of our personality that's all bound up in its own arrogance or self-righteousness or anger or shame or whatever it's running. If we judge it, we're not progressing. We're adding more fuel to the heated fire within ourselves. If we bring presence to it and totally allow it to be here, something happens. What we're doing is that we're engaging another part of our brain that's not running the me, myself, I story. We're actually teaching our brain how to have that story running, the persistent one. And at the same time, it's not the only show in town. Presence can be there watching it. And it's a technique that allows us to observe the parts of ourselves that we normally might be very critical of. And it's only the mind is critical in that way. Whereas the energy of our beingness is loving, is compassionate, and allows whatever part of our personality needs to be yucky and unresolved, allowing it to be there with that presence, with that container. It's like our deeper being can be a container for our personality.
That's a good way to describe it.
And that actually changes our brain. It changes our brain.
Changes our experience too, doesn't it?
And it completely changes our experience. It's like, oh gosh, look, it's you know, I'm losing the heat in that argument. You know, the heat is coming out of it. It's changing. I can accept things. Maybe I can forgive myself. Maybe I can forgive them. And we naturally move towards those softer expressions, and healing comes. So that's one technique that's very potent, that is a catch-all for many of these patterns that are repetitive and awfully painful to live through again and again and again, you know?
That's a great way to describe it, bringing presence to the story.
Yes, bringing presence to the story. Yes.
Yes.
It's got more heart in it than observe your thoughts, you know?
Yes, yes.
And there's more of the felt sense there. Rather than the mind looking at the mind, let's bring our humanness in, our compassionate, loving beingness. Let's observe the mind with that energy. And it's more potent. I found it's more potent for people.
Definitely. It definitely is. When you can be lovingly aware of what is, as opposed to
That's right.
Which is
that's
what we
right.
usually do.
That's right. And all that's happening then is the mind is judging the mind.
Yeah, it's a feedback loop.
It's a feedback loop. You have it. It's a feedback.
Yes. That's wonderful. So, do you have some? Can you take people through that? When you do groups, do you just work one-on-one, or do you sometimes do a process or a meditation or experiment? Something guided to bring people into that experience? Or
I do. I start the sessions with dropping them in so that there is a movement away from the anxiety, that anxious state that we all know, into, okay, I'm safe here. How can I explore? And so freedom and creativity gets opened up within us. So there's always a leading in at the start. Then what I do is I don't bring people to a chair. I stand at the top and have a roving mic when we're in a scenario of where there's an open, when it's not online.
The good old days.
The good old days, indeed. And so I ask people, it's the two questions. What's going on for you? Because I want to encourage every spiritual seeker to have autonomy over their own path. The day of one teacher and one guru, these are going, and I'm heralding the dawn of the new, which has a more of an autonomous capacity for each student to have their own discernment around, actually, I can't drop in because of A, B, C, D. I can't access that. Or actually, it's these thoughts that no matter what I do, they will not resolve, soften. And I work with that. People who actually life, it doesn't bother me. I know it's a movie. I know it's my mind is creating it and I participate in it. And from those, with those people, I move them to what is beyond the recognition of your pure nature, of true awareness, because it doesn't stop there.
Right.
However, it doesn't stop there. It's a first step, but it's a necessary step.
Oh, it's critical.
It's critical. And I'd be interested to know, Hale, from your work, like, what's the duration? Because from my experience, people need to get really used to the recognition of their true nature, their divine essence. That needs to be pretty solid for 2 years. After a 2-year period, something is willing to open again. And I don't know if you have noticed a period of time.
That's a good question. In my experience, it's been different depending on each body-mind mechanism. Some people go from those initial glimpses of that which they truly are to abiding more and more of the time relatively quickly. And other people, it's a process. What's wonderful to watch is when people do what you're describing, where they're however they do it. And now you gave one way, which is through breath, but there are many things actually in Rhonda's book, and from all the teachers in Rhonda's a book. They give many ways to access that, and and we as an organization do the same thing. And we balance. It's very similar to what you do. We also have some very powerful but simple processes that help people dissolve their attachment to the movie.
That's right.
But I do think it is a process. And if people can be open to the fact that it is a process, and they are lovingly open to the process, as opposed to, I got to do it now. How come I'm not enlightened in this second? Or how could I still be having thoughts like this or feelings like this if I'm really just awareness? That doesn't make sense. So I must be fooling myself, or I must be faking it, or I must be not really recognizing the truth of who I am. So that all needs to be dealt with and released.
That's right.
So how else do you support people in that, through that process, that during that 2 years, what do you recommend people do?
Oh yeah, everything that everything that lies on a deeper level. What's held in the body? What are your nighttime dreams like? What still plays as a little bit of multicolor? And even, you've people who are like who are teaching spiritually, leading spiritual groups, and it's like, it's my kids every time, especially moms. That's what'll crank up something that's in my cells. And so we're looking at those other layers. We might find something in a past life. We might find something in the collective. We might find something in the realm of fear itself, shame itself, that sticks to any thought. Like, I'm not afraid of anything, but there's fear eating me up. And so these things pop up once we've managed a lot of day-to-day getting caught in the story. And there's a relative.
And it's important to deal with the deeper stuff. Otherwise it can.
That's right. That's the deeper stuff.
Confuse us. Yes.
That's right. It's the deeper stuff. And I have those skills. Like when I'm looking at somebody, I can see their energy field. I can see their aura. I can see their past life. I can see their destinies. And I can see those capabilities. So I have this palette in front of me with which to say, okay, this actually is from 3 or 4 generations up your line, and it comes, that's where the addiction is originated. So let's do some shifting of the karmic line in your family. And lo and behold, all kinds of spin-off effect happens that is of benefit to siblings, parents. These kind of things happen, that when we go into the more subtle realms of what is it that makes us plug in to what our mind says and believe that it's true. And so sometimes rooting up these habitual thoughts and habitual emotional reactions, we can go to very quirky places, in order to heal them. Yes. And that's a wonderful thing, because we discover we're multidimensional beings. We discover that everything is interconnected. We're one unit. There is one unit, and I've got to take care of my part, but there's a knock-on effect everywhere.
Yes.
And so we get to taste that the potency of our own spiritual integrity is operating for the greater good. So we discover that our very own inner personal journey is a gift to all humanity. It is a gift to all humanity.
Yes, I love that. That's a good way to express it. Yes.
Yeah. So it's kind of hard for me to trigger down into like giving specific tools, because the way I work is like, who's in front of me? What's going on for you? What stops you from abiding? And what is it that is gnarly? in your thinking? What's
Oh, yeah,
gnarly?
yeah. So you
Yeah,
work with people on a one-on-one basis or in small
yeah,
groups.
within
Yes,
the full spectrum of their multidimensionality, to see what is the root cause that is echoing in their phenomenal experience.
yes, yes.
That's
What would
right.
be something that you would encourage people to do over any time period? It doesn't matter. It could
Yeah,
be a few days, a few weeks, a few months, or just
yeah.
the next 10 minutes.
To look at our self-image. That's a
Yeah,
really good one.
that's the one the word I
Yeah,
couldn't,
yeah.
yes, the word self-image.
That's
So let's
our
talk about that.
self-image, because our humanness is wired to love and be loved. And our self-image is one way that our cultures have honed in on as a way to commercialize. And you do it this way, and this makes you more lovable, and this makes you more acceptable, and this makes you more popular. And there's a fine mess there, really, when we look
Yes.
at, yeah, there is. It's like,
It's a big
wow,
mess. Yes, I
it's a
know.
big mess. And each of us is plugged in some shape or form to self-image, you know?
Yes.
Like one thing, when I wrote my first book, I don't know, 10 years ago or something, I decided I'm never going to look at a review. I'm never going to, because the very first review that somebody sent me was glowing. And he said, I just want to send you a copy of this. I'll put it on Amazon. And I was like, I can feel myself enjoying this.
Yes.
That's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is somebody else's opinion of what I've offered. They can love it, they can hate it. And if I'm abiding in pure awareness, then it actually doesn't matter.
Yes, yes.
It
And
really
that's an
doesn't
important
matter.
thing for people to hear.
Yeah.
The
It
more you
really
abide
doesn't
in that.
matter. Really doesn't matter.
Yes.
The humanness might like it or might not like it, but actually I don't read any reviews at all. I didn't read any reviews after that. I'm like, I'm actually not going to do it at all. I'm just going to disconnect from it, because that's other people's opinions and they're very entitled to them. And actually I'm not going to make it something that I put into my head at all, good or bad. So that's one thing that I did. So, and I suppose it was part of my mechanism to unplug from what people think of me. Mm-hmm. And one challenge that might be a bit of fun is for everybody to wear clothes that they feel they should be paid to wear.
Okay, explain.
And go to their familiar coffee shop, grocery store, visit family, like to go someplace where people know them. So wear something that you think is hideous, that completely goes against your style.
And you can do that on Zoom too.
You could do it on Zoom, you could. But the thing is, I remember saying this to somebody and he said, well, I could do that as a party and tell everybody to do it. And I'm like, that's not the point. That defeats, that's it. It defeats the purpose. But the fear was so bad. It's like, whoa, me change my entire image? Because the exercise is, okay, you wear whatever it is, something that really you don't want to be seen dead in. Mm-hmm. And you go out absolutely cool and natural, as if, well, what's wrong? And let people judge you and don't soak it up. Don't tell them you're doing an exercise. Just watch to see what does your mind do, because you're setting up a scenario of where people are invited to judge you.
Yes.
Because you might have a piece of underwear on your head. Right? That kind of thing.
Yeah,
like, put a piece of underwear on your head and go with a pair of panties or an underpants and go do your grocery shopping. And then watch and be completely your normal self and say, their opinion of me is none of my concern. Their opinion of me, and watch what happens inside, how we want to protect ourselves, how we don't want to be laughed at, we don't want to be judged. Look at all the hijinks we do to avoid allowing people to think what they like. Mm-hmm. Because we want to protect our self-image, because we want to be seen in a certain way so that we can be safe and loved. And all of this mechanism of self-image has to break down. Break down.
Yes.
It has to be seen to be, I'm investing in who my mind thinks is acceptable, who my mind thinks is lovable, really? And we can drop the whole thing. But a great way to drop it is, well, what do I have to drop actually? How deep is this investment in my image? And doing that exercise, so everybody who's listening, do this once in the next 5 days. Put a piece of clean underwear on your head and go grocery shopping. And don't giggle with people. Don't give them permission to join
like
with you
normal.
in the joke. You have to act like it's normal and watch, what is my mind doing? What is my mind doing? How invested am I? Or am I actually, everybody is free to think exactly what they want of me. It's really none of my business. What I'm doing is buying my groceries right now. And can we be still and in the present moment and not, when we provoke self-image judgment, can we ignore it and still remain present? That's my challenge.
That's a big challenge for most people, especially right now, because a lot of people aren't going out grocery shopping. They're having their groceries delivered.
Yes.
But so I love that. What's an ongoing practice to address that? That's a challenge if you really want to.
Yeah, that's a challenge to see one pocket.
Yes,
to see a pocket of self-image and see how we plug into that. And then, of course, that leads to, well, actually, I'm not my body at all. I'm not my body, but there must be love for this body and respect for this body. What could be an ongoing thing? Running a sentence is very useful, and traditionally it would be running mantra, where a sacred phrase would be repeated. And there's energy in those sacred phrases.
Yes, there is.
There is energy in them. So if somebody is drawn to a sacred phrase, then Om Namah Shivaya is a beautiful one.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody wants a sentence in English, in their own language, to recondition the mind, there's potency in that too. And sometimes we have to condition the mind with a little bit of truth,
Yes, definitely.
And a sentence might be, I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who I think I am. A sentence might be, this is not real. This is not real. I'm going to keep saying that until I see this is not real. Lo and behold, if you keep running a sentence, the back of your mind, this is not real, this is not real. I'm watching the news and this is not real. This me is not real, and so that is not real. What we're looking for is a eureka moment of like, oh gosh, actually it's not. My mind is creating all of this and it has a believability about it, but my mind is creating it all. That's what we're looking for. We're not looking for avoidance. Oh, this is not real, therefore, no, I'm out of the game. It's not that. There is no I.
It's not a spiritual bypass.
It's not a bypass. Yes. That's right. Not a bypass. To recondition our brain is a really good thing, because there certainly were parts of my own journey where I had to tell my mind, you can't go here, because your mind will try to help you. And it's a great tool until it's in the way.
Yeah, well, until it thinks it's in charge.
It thinks it's in charge, and it wants to go with you. It wants to create that inner awareness, and like when we drop into that beingness, what's a really good thing to check out is my mind creating this felt inner sense? Is my mind creating it? Is it a state of mind, or is it deeper? That's a great pointer. Is this deeper than a state of mind? Mm-hmm. And so anytime we can recognize during the day, I feel such and such, it's like, okay, is that a state of mind? And your mind is co-opting your body. So now you have your mind and your emotions running the same story. What is not a state of mind? Where in me is not created by my mind?
That's a great question.
Where in me? And there's no real answer. Oh, it's there. We can't exactly.
Well, if
we
you
can't
answer
find
that's
it.
mind. It's just
that's
more mind.
Right. It's more mind. You'll only land on a state of mind, but the openness of that question, where is not a state of mind within?
Yes.
So these are some tools that are useful.
Yes, those are great. Thanks. And earlier on, you mentioned that awareness, recognizing that awareness, that the awareness that you are is actually just the first step.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit what's beyond that?
Yes. Woof. I usually don't talk about this until people have a 2-year period of being very familiar with awareness. Okay.
But you just say as
yeah.
much as you feel comfortable.
Yeah, because people go, oh, that's gobbledygook, and their mind comes in because their mind tries to understand it. So this part is not for the mind, but something deeper knows.
All right, everybody, park your minds.
Yes.
Just for now. You can pick them up again later.
Exactly.
And
it'll be there. It'll be there waiting for you.
Open to what Jac's about to say with your heart as best you can.
Yeah. Be empty to see what happens.
Yes.
Being aware that we exist, being aware of awareness, being aware that we are that awareness. Then we drop a little bit deeper, and it's almost like let trapdoors open now. Let a trapdoor open of where being aware of awareness, let a trapdoor open, fall deeper to where there is awareness where it does not have the capacity to be aware of itself. It's awareness that isn't doing anything, doesn't see anything, doesn't know anything. It doesn't engage in turning around and looking at and being aware of itself. Pure awareness that doesn't know that it is. Mm-hmm. Let another trapdoor beneath that open. The trapdoor is dropping the idea that your true identity is awareness. There is no need to be anything. It's a great stepping stone to swapping I am my body, my mind, my thoughts, I am Jac O'Keeffe, to I am awareness, I am pure being, I am an expression of the divine, right through to actually, there is no identity at all. What was it that was ever looking for the solid ground of any identity? Drop any identity at all. Deeper than identity, the idea of existence shows up to be a myth. Mm-hmm. So we're going kind of, prior to existence is the only word I have, but prior isn't accurate because it suggests time.
That's right. But we're using language, so we're
using language.
Yes.
So where the idea of existence has not yet, cannot formulate, hasn't arisen. So before existence. Now it gets pretty empty.
Yes.
It's blank. Nothing, and the concept of nothing isn't there.
Right.
Then words are obsolete.
Yes. Sometimes when I do retreats, there's just nothing to say, and you just allow for that.
Yes.
Yes. That's beautiful. I really enjoyed sharing this time with you. I think you gave something of real value to everyone listening to this.
And thank you for the opportunity to chat about it and put some meat on our quotes, in Rhonda's book, just to give some more context.
Yes, it's been wonderful to do that. And it's wonderful. Every one of these conversations has been totally different.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And so as people watch these or listen to these, they'll be able to get more and more sense of what Rhonda was pointing at from all the unique perspectives that each teacher brings to the book. So,
yes, every path is different. And I think that's why it's so important for everybody who's listening to honor their own path. What's real for you right now? That's where the rubber hits the road. That's you making your path, walking your path, and honor that. Honor that.
Totally. Yes, that's wonderful. I hope you enjoyed our time with Jac O'Keeffe. You can learn more about her in the podcast notes for this episode, including her books, her Truth Serum Cafe, her retreats, and links to her Facebook and YouTube pages. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please give us a 5-star rating, subscribe to the podcast, and share it with the people you care about. If you'd like to learn more about Lester Levenson's and my work, including the Sedona method, please visit sedona.com. As you explore our site, you'll learn how to recognize and live the peace, love, joy, and beauty that are your basic nature, while learning how to also see through your thoughts and feelings. Be free from the noise of the mind. Let go of all your inner obstacles and unhook from your limiting stories and beliefs. We have books, courses, events, and plenty of free material to explore. Again, please go to sedona.com. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to sharing the next episode of Letting Go and the Greatest Secret.